In 1931, Sammie Dean would be found strangled to death on the floor of the suite she lived in at a brothel in Jerome, Arizona, which was called the wickedest town in America. At the time, 4 prominent suspects came to light, but none arrested in Sammie's death. Who murdered Sammie Dean? Hello everybody, we are back. We're looking at Reddit, our unresolved mysteries. Today we have a post by Tara Calco's Bike. I'll leave her original post in the description. Alright, let's get to reading it. Marie Juanita Lovelace, aka Sammie Dean. Marie Juanita Lovelace, who would later go by the name Sammie Dean, was born in 1892 in Texas to her parents Oscar Lovelace and Virginia Jean Lee Lovelace. When Sammie Dean was 3 years of age, her father would pass away, and 1 year later, her mother remarried. Her stepfather was named Landwehrmeyer, a fellow widower with 4 children from his first marriage. James and Jeannie would go on to have a child of their own together, named Leo, in the 1900. Unfortunately, Jeannie's second husband would die shortly after, in 1905, and this left the family struggling to make ends meet. The family would move to Dallas, Texas, and in 1910, Sammie and her mother would gain employment together at a factory that produced overalls. Later that same year, Sammie would go on to work at Sanger Brothers dried goods and clothing store. Once 1914 rolled around, it seemed that Sammie was no longer living in Dallas, Texas. In fact, she wouldn't be accounted for on record for an additional 6 years. At some point during this time, Sammie would meet and marry a man named George Dean, only described as a gambler. The pair were accounted for on a 1920 census, when they appeared to be living with Sammie's mother, back in Dallas. George's job was listed as the proprietor of a cigar shop. Once again, in 1920, Sammie would disappear from the record. There were rumors that Sammie had taken on sex work in Colorado to make ends meet, before winding up in Arizona. We also lose track of George Dean, who is said to have left Sammie in Jerome, Arizona, when they divorced. At that time, Jerome was called the wickedest town in America by the New York Sun due to its many brothels to satisfy the endless amounts of minors passing through the town. Sammie was taking care of herself and making ends meet, though after the divorce, she owned her own car, expensive jewelry, and was rumored that Sammie kept a large amount of cash in her suite in one of Jerome's best brothels. Where she was employed. At the time, her residence was located in Old Crib District, also known as Husband's Alley. Sammie fit right into Jerome, a bustling mining town setting on the mountainside just north of Prescott. Sammie was known to have many friends and a handful of admirers around town. July 10th, 1931. On the morning of July 10th, 1931, Sammie was spotted by a neighbor in town and stated that she had been wearing a green dress at the time. Sammie had also made plans around noon that day to spend time with her friends. Around 8:30 a.m., a witness had seen a white man in a Panama hat enter Sammie's home, but it was never determined who this man was or why he was entering Sammie's home later that afternoon. When her friends came knocking on her door at their scheduled time, no one had answered. Once 6 p.m. rolled around, friends began to get nervous, wondering if Sammie was all right. Sammie's best friend, Leo Portillo, decided it was time to check on Sammie, making his way to her home. Once he got there, he noticed that the front door was securely locked, but as he walked around the back, he saw the back door was left wide open. Hesitantly, he entered the home, finding that it had been completely ransacked. Not only that, Sammie Dean was lying dead on the floor, covered in bruises. She was wearing only a slip with blanket haphazardly thrown over her. Sammie's cause of death was determined to be strangulation, and it appeared that robbery was the motive. Her gun had been stolen and her purse was emptied, yet the expensive jewelry Sammie owned was still present in the house. This led to investigators to wonder if there was another motive that had led to her killing, and the robbery was staged to cover it up. Sammie's beloved dog, a German Shepherd, was left unharmed, and it appeared that it hadn't attacked anyone. No neighbors had reported hearing the dog barking either. The poor dog, who was so attached to his owner, refused to leave Sammie's side as officers removed her body. Sammie's older sister, Virginia, made the trip from Dallas to Jerome to claim her sister's body, with her 5 children in tow. Strangely, in a way to protect the family, Sammie's place of birth was listed in Arkansas instead of Texas. This death certificate was signed off on July 13th, and her body was soon afterwards returned to Dallas to be buried in the family plot in Calvary Hill Cemetery. A few suspects came to light in the days after the slaying, but not many, as the police had very little to work with. Sammie herself had made mention, in a large letter to her family, how Mayor Thomas Miller's son, Jack, had asked for her hand in marriage, and she refused. She stated that when she refused his proposal, he was furious and vowed to get revenge on her. There were local rumors that the son then disappeared shortly after the murder. However, both of the mayor's sons were 20 years younger than Sammie, and both were counted as living in Jerome as late as the 1940s, if not longer. Another person of interest was Sammie's current boyfriend, who was described as a hard miner and a fighter, who appeared to have never been questioned. As far as George Dean, it's unclear where he was at the time of the murder. The official list of suspects was 4 names long: Tom Miller, the mayor himself, Jack Miller, his son, Bert Owens, the sheriff's son, and Leo Portillo, the man who found Sammie's body, her best friend, and a waiter at the local New York cafe. Strangely, Bert Owens did leave town directly after the murder, and this left most of the town's residents to conclude that he was in fact the killer. Despite this, no arrests were ever made, and the murder of Sammie Dean has gone unsolved for nearly 100 years. Closing. Whether you buy into ghost stories or not, Jerome is considered one of the most haunted towns in the West, something of pride and financially beneficial to the tiny mountain community. It is stated that Sammie Dean is one of the many spirits that roam the town, often being sighted in the Old Crib District and near the former Clydesdale Hotel. Another strange but interesting fact that lends to the idea that Jerome is haunted is that during its heyday, when bodies were cremated, they mixed the dead's ashes with concrete to form the sidewalls of the city. Whether this left spirits roaming the town or simply a way to attract visitors with an eerie tale is unknown. But if you are ever near Jerome, Arizona, it's absolutely worth the trip, if for nothing but the incredible view itself. If you end up there, please take a moment to acknowledge Sammie Dean, whose story has not been forgotten over 91 years later. Alright, that is the end of the post. It was a pretty good read, not too long. If you guys like this video, please go up and upvote the original post that you can find down in the description. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If so, please like and subscribe, and I'll definitely make more like it. I'll see you guys all later. Until next time.